Astronomy, the study of celestial bodies in space. Just as astronomy is big, so is its history. About 4000 BC, the Mesopotamians have studied astronomy. The Mesopotamians built pyramid-like structures called ziggurats. Each ziggurat had multiple terraces, each made to look out at a celestial body. The ziggurats were also homes to the Mesopotamian astronomers. The astronomers also used constellations to tell time. 1,000 years later, a structure called the Stonehenge was built. Very little is known about the structure, but all the rocks are placed so that during the summer solstice sun, it is aligned with the heel stone. In the 13th century BC, Chinese astronomers recorded 9,000 solar eclipses and 600 lunar eclipses, which would lapse about 2,600 years in their future. The Chinese astronomers also recorded meteor showers, comets, as well as the appearance of guest stars. In 624 BC, Thales came into existence, and throughout time he did great things for astronomy. He was actually one of the first people to reject mythological explanation openly, which grew like disease and became essential for scientific revolution. Thales theorized that all matter was made of water, and that earthly phenomena were because water existed under land. For example, when water rippled under land, earthquakes were made. 582 to 500 BC, Pythagoras took the astronomical cake by creating a model of the solar system. He also introduced that celestial bodies are round. Also, he thought Earth revolves around a central fire unseen by a counter-Earth. Last, he theorized that celestial bodies move so incredibly fast that they make a sound of harmony that we can't hear because we're so used to the sound. In 500 BC, or the death of Pythagoras, the Babylonians started to realize something about these astronomical celestial bodies. They realized that astronomical phenomena was periodical. In return, they were the first to observe patterns in planets in the skies year-round. 116 years later, in the time frame of 384 to 322 BC, Aristotle theorized and proved that all celestial bodies are round. Also, he theorized that Earth was made up of 4 elements: air, water, earth, and fire. In 310 to 230 BC, Aristarchus showed it was possible using geometry to predict relative distances from Earth to celestial bodies. He did this using the moon and the shadows cast upon it during the solar eclipse. During 276 to 195 BC, Eratosthenes was calculating the circumference of the Earth. Mathematically speaking, he built a method to identify prime numbers. Last, he split the Earth into 5 climates. About 134 BC, Hipparchus, also known as the father of trigonometry, discovered precession of equinoxes. He was also the first Greek known to divide a circle into 360 degrees of 60 arcmen. From 250 to 900 AD, Mayans or Mesoamericans created an accurate calendar of dates. The calendar marked seasons, eclipses, and even phenomena. In 127 to 151 AD, Ptolemy invented terrestrial latitude and longitude. He was also the first person to make maps with north on the top and east to the right. But that wasn't the extent of his mapping skills. He managed to coordinate more than 1,000 stars. Last, he said Earth rotated in many circular motions. The Arabs in 1394 to 1449 AD started to preserve ancient Greek astronomy documents by translating them to Islamic. And when the first Christians found these documents, they were able to use them for astronomy. Shortly after, in 1473 and 1543, Copernicus developed a model of the solar system and also developed an early form of capitalism. Also, he tried to introduce that money shows the worst in people.
Brahe was roughly born around the 1500s and was an astronomer that was one of the last to study space with the naked eye. He also studied alchemy, which was the medical study of chemistry, based on the transformation of matter. Now, Galileo was born in 1542, and he was a physicist, mathematician, and an astronomer. Galileo did not invent the telescope, but he had a big part in making improvements to the telescope. Galileo was an astronomer who made the confirmation of the phases of Venus. Also, the 4 largest satellites of Jupiter were named after him in his honor. Now, speaking of Brahe, Kepler was an assistant who was best known for the laws of planetary motion. And then we move on to Isaac Newton, who was born in 1643 or roughly around that time. Of course, everyone is familiar with some of Newton's work, but if you're not, he discovered the 3 laws of motion. Also shares credit with Gottfried Leibniz for the invention of calculus. So now we move on to Edmund Halley, who was born in mid-1700s. Edmund was best recognized for determining the orbit of the well-known Halley's Comet, which was named after his discovery. Now we move on to the highly notorious Einstein, who was born around the early 1900s and was famous for the development of the theory of relativity. But what he was well known for was the mass-energy equivalence with the formula of E, which now leads us to Wolfgang Pauli. He was a theoretical physicist and one of the pioneers of quantum physics. So then we move on from Wolfgang Pauli to Werner Heisenberg, also a theoretical physicist and one of the key creators of quantum mechanics. Then we go from Werner Heisenberg to Edwin Hubble, who was an astronomer who played a crucial role in the field of extragalactic astronomy and is generally regarded as the most important cosmologist.